Our first panel is going to take up this question of changing channels, cross-screen advertising in the new normal. And to lead this panel, we have with us an old friend, Shani Reardon, who is the direct agency president at Modus Direct. Shani, are you there?
Oh, I had to unmute myself. Hi, how are you?
Hi. Is your camera on?
There you go.
are. Where are you coming to us from?
I am in Sarasota, Florida, and I am actually back in my office. So unlike some of you, I actually have I'm actually outside of my house, which is kind of nice.
Okay. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you so we can get the panel going. This is me shutting up.
Yeah, no problem. So I thought that maybe we could start with everybody that's on the panel, maybe introducing themselves. I thought that would maybe be nice. I don't know, Janna, you're in the upper left-hand corner of my screen, so I don't know if you want to start and then go to Michael and then Tania. That's the way you guys look on my screen.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to kick us off. Hi, everyone. My name's Janna Navarro. I am the Senior Director of Offline Media Strategy and Planning for HomeAdvisor.
Hi, Tania Nemaric, Vice President of Brand Marketing at 1-800-Flowers.com, overseeing our brand marketing efforts, our go-to-market planning and strategy.
Hi, my name is Michael Melia. I'm Director of Media at Dashlane, overseeing B2C brands media as well as B2B brands and lead gen. Okay,
awesome. Thank you guys for starting with the intro. So, we've spent a little bit of time talking, and I think that, what we really wanted to start with was some of the shining positive moments of 2020 as it pertains to media opportunities. And then kind of you guys talking about your shifts in strategy that kind of enabled you to uncover maybe these hidden gems or things that you finally have been able to test, different media, et cetera, in 2020 that maybe you've been putting off. So, Tania, do you want to start with giving that a shot?
Absolutely. We obviously, with everybody at home, everybody clamoring to see what's the next binge watching content piece that we can look into. We saw inventory soar with an OTT, allowing for brands to really get involved in the space and do some testing. For us, for 1-800-Flowers.com, with customers searching for ways to stay connected during the height of our stay-at-home orders, it gave us flexibility to test into new investment areas. Where we historically hadn't been, especially at a time where we haven't. So we've typically been on during key holidays, and we were able to put some dollars into everyday testing. We also saw some bright spots within streaming radio. So for us, we're really excited to be able to put some additional dollars and spend against everyday business.
Also, Michael, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, it's been an interesting year for us because we started our year really jumping in the deep end of brands marketing with a Super Bowl ad and a national TV campaign, which was very exciting until about 3 weeks into our national TV campaign, the US was closing down and the stock market had fallen 30%. It was an eventful moment to be in the market in TV then. And this year has been really great for us. It's been full of learning experiences, and it's really helped us to perform on an agile basis. Often jumping in and out of different channels, different types of marketing on a quarterly basis and on a monthly basis. And we continued buying TV, interestingly, throughout the year in a variety of different ways. We decided to change our audience. We decided to limit the scope a little bit more in order to have a higher impact. But overall, it was actually a very good year where there were lots of challenges, but areas to find opportunity as well, with low costs on digital and programmatic channels, and lots of experimentation around messaging that is just the state of the world we live in, where COVID has thrown us all for a loop. So it's been a really interesting year to experiment with creative and with media buying.
Yep, and I'll kind of echo that on our end due to the volatility of the market and several advertisers pulling out in Q2, even into early Q3, we were able to really take advantage of a lot of places that we didn't test before. So areas within linear TV, like different sports programming where we may have had price barriers before, as well as streaming TV. So able to accomplish a lot of tests in Q3.
So on some of those tests that you guys did this year, what were some highlights that you have in your plans to roll out for 2021? And do you kind of feel that those are going to hold true maybe to performance that you've seen this year?
I
Why don't you
think
go ahead? No, I was going to say, go ahead and keep going, Janna.
and we can toss it back. I think on my end, certainly, we really put our pedal to the metal on streaming, and streaming has kind of become the mainstream now at this point, particularly due to COVID and people being at home. I think the latest Nielsen report showed that there was the highest growth among 55 plus, which is a key demo for us. So really happy that we were able to take advantage of a lot of streaming testing in Q3. Definitely plan to incorporate that within our plans in 2021.
Yeah, same for us from a flower side. We're still analyzing all the data, but that's exactly our plan. We're going to continue to invest where we see the most efficient return on investment. I think, like Michael said, we're going to iterate from our creative insights that we have in market. We're going to continue to test new partners. It's continuing to just evolve and continue to spend and test.
Yeah, and I think for Dashlane, the only constant for us is change. And I think that's certainly going to continue into next year. We've actually in Q4 started to open up a lot more tests with media channels and creative on our B2B side. And we found that with COVID, everybody working from home, we've been addressing the B2C market of people, stuck at home, trying to share passwords for things like Netflix and New York Times, and also for businesses. And there's a very big opportunity we see with businesses all having gone remote now for a significant period of time, to do a lot more investment in that world and to reach people who are at home, whether you're part of a business or you're an IT admin, through branded media, potentially through online video, potentially through TV. I think that's still to be decided. But engaging a lot with content and storytelling, I think, has been really important for us this year, and it's what we're going to continue next year, because these are all very uncertain times. And by telling a certain story and by engaging with consumers in the right way, and by kind of listening to what they need and anticipating what they need in this moment of being stuck at home all the time, we're trying to find new avenues and new inroads that just didn't exist before.
All of you kind of mentioned creative in that. We didn't actually discuss this kind of previously, but you all touched on it briefly. So what do you think about that for 2021 as it pertains to how these media that you're going to be continuing? What does that creative look like? And do you have a plan on that yet? I know that it's October, quickly getting into November here, but what are your thoughts on that, the creative side of it?
So I can kind of kick it off. So we're investing a lot more in content. Kind of what I was saying in terms of storytelling and trying to understand, what people's needs are today. For password management, for digital identity management and online access, it's every day is new, right? For the past couple of years, we've had breaches every week, every month from major companies all across the spectrum. And people are still trying to juggle and figure out how to work online, how to work and live entirely online, with kids going to school online, with social life happening only online. And we see content as a really valuable mechanism and vehicle to connect with people in a meaningful way, to help them understand throughout this process how they can change what they do, how they can do what they do better. We just concluded a really interesting internet friction study where we analyzed through qualitative and quantitative analysis how people are using the internet today and where there is friction for people in everyday life. And we found that actually there's tons of friction that people are just not aware of, because they assume that that's just the price of access for using the internet. So we're leveraging that to develop a lot of content for B2C and B2B. And we're hoping that that's going to open up a lot of new channels of communication and of meaningful interaction with consumers for the next year.
I could jump in from just our company mission side. Our company mission is to help our customers express, connect, and engage. And as we're shifting from that e-commerce mentality to more of this engagement-based organization, we believe it's more important to form these deep relationships with our customers. And the best way of reinforcing those relationships, or to establishing at the onset those relationships, is through creative and finding the right creative to engage and attract to them. And it has to be meaningful, using stories that are generated by customers or feel that they're native to the environment in which they're in, not prefabricated, not over stylized, not overproduced, really becomes more relatable. And we're seeing a lot stronger response from our channels for those where we're paying more attention, thinking through the creative, and being more surgical in how we're either from a targeted audience side, or again, just really looking at the media partner that we're working with to build that out. I mean, I know it's not a paid media, but a strong stat that we took through COVID, we deployed an email from our founder and our CEO. And it was one of the highest click-through emails that we had to date. And it did not feature any sales message. It was just a heartfelt message from them, checking in on our customers. How are you guys feeling? It's a really troubling time. And we just want to let you know that here's some ways that you can connect, pick up the phone, log on to Zoom. There was not one sales message in there. And our customers respected that. And a lot of them turned to social media to praise us at a time that you could have taken a different route. We chose to just be there for our customers and help them connect further.
Yeah, I think we've also taken the approach of there's not a one size fits all when it comes to creative. We've really been working hand in hand with our analytics team and understanding what types of creative that we have out there perform differently on different types of networks. So something that performs really well on a YouTube may not perform as well on a Hallmark channel. So really making sure that we aren't just saying this performed well here, that means it will perform well everywhere.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That actually, I'm going to jump ahead a couple of questions that I had for you guys because we're talking about targeting and consumers. So, you know, and you started answering a lot of it as far as like, have you adjusted the targeting, you know, those strategies to your consumers during this time, and, you know, because of their behavior or consumption changes, and, you know, what are your thoughts there as far as, you know, just the changes you've made this year and how applicable are they going to be moving forward? And it's a lot of it's very unknown, right? Because we don't really know what 2021 is going to look like. So what are your thoughts about the targeting side of it and your strategies there?
I mean, on our end, we have a very broad product. So we haven't changed too much in terms of our targeting, but what I will say is we're paying very close attention to media consumption trends and really trying to flow our media plan to match those consumption trends. I had mentioned earlier, adults 55 plus are the fastest growing segment of streaming TV. So really making sure that we're not just thinking of it as something that millennials are doing, that it's now spreading all age demos. So I would say it's more of paying attention to the trends versus us necessarily changing our targeting parameters.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Tania, Michael, do you have any additional thoughts on that?
I was just going to say, as a stakeholder in marketing, it's our job and our duty to make sure that we explain to leadership exactly what you were saying, in that there's certain stereotypes that come with different media, and it's to break those down. We're seeing streaming, some of the great responses that we're seeing in streaming radio happen from the 55 plus audience. So we did not go in with any specific target bias, but we kind of let the data tell us what the responses are. We sometimes in the organization are met with resistance when putting YouTube on the plan and understanding how YouTube can be a meaningful media form to drive response with our targets. And they think, you know, our target audience is 45 plus. She's not watching YouTube. Yeah, she is. And she's watching it a lot. So it's really kind of bringing that information back and using data to re-educate key stakeholders to test.
Yeah, and I think for us, it's been a really interesting year because we started the year very, very broad. We started the year with Super Bowl. We started the year with a national TV campaign. And we wanted to use this as the first time to establish ourselves as a market leader in our space for the consumer side. And we wanted to, you know, establish that in the world that is password management today, we are one of the defining brands that you should be aware of. But I think the challenge was that the conversation changed radically, right? Like I said, like 3 weeks into our national TV campaign, that's when the stock market crashed 30% and the news cycle was going completely haywire. And we realized that, okay, this is probably not going to be a year for us where we can put our, like, draw a line in the sand and say, this is who we are, this is our brand, because the conversation was going to be radically different than almost any other time in our lifetime. And so we actually decided to really shrink the audience and go a lot more granular. And we worked with Merkle to define a very, very precise one-to-one audience of tech diligence, which is an audience that we built who is more so than a mass audience, than a mass market audience, an audience that's more focused on technological optimization and solutions for their lives. And we decided to kind of go in on that on TV, to go in on that on online video, as well as programmatic channels, and really start to experiment and find some efficiencies. Just because it's harder this year, especially in an election year too, to have that message and to land that message and to stick when there's so many other important conversations going on. So I think one of the things that we learned is just how to listen as a brand and how to respond and react in ways that consumers would react favorably to. And I think it's to a lot of what we've already said about content and about engaging meaningfully. I think there's this year we've seen that focus where, we're focusing less on developing, the perfect ad with the best click-through rate, and more thinking about what kind of content can we provide? How can we be there? How can we support in a more meaningful way than I think was ever previously the norm?
Yeah, this is actually a good segue. Michael mentioned political, taking out COVID. Have you guys made any, specific 4Q kind of media strategy changes, because of the political market, political landscape? The housing market has dramatically changed. Advanced Black Friday, right? Amazon Prime was last week. Holidays in general, it's very different feeling out in the marketplace this year, I think. And so have you guys made any strategy changes media-wise as it pertains to that stuff going on?
Sure. Well, from TV, we've basically cut all of our tests, and this was planned since the beginning of the year, because we knew that the election was coming. We know that TV goes crazy when you're so close to this election moment, especially with the amounts of fundraising and TV ad dollars that are being spent right now. So we decided to wrap that up and essentially have a 2-month period of analyzing this data in order to help inform us of what we would do in 2021. And in the meantime, going along with this talk of being agile, of testing, we're trying a lot of different things. We're trying different kinds of tests. We're going more niche. We're trying to get in front of specific audiences with specific messaging. And we're also leveraging more so than normal non-paid. So, more organic SEO, blog, content, CRM, and really ramping up that side of the business in this time, which is notoriously challenging, especially given everything this year, as you mentioned, right? Like Cyber Monday, Black Friday, it's taking up a lot more space than it usually would, just because of work from home and the whole situation for this Q4, which makes it pretty unique.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty hard to not think about COVID going into Q4. I would say we are going into Q4 with just flexibility. First and foremost, we have to remain flexible. So really trying to shy away from any sort of firm commitments. And I think that that's going to be kind of like the backbone of our plan in Q4. And what we've been able to do to kind of get around some of the political stuff is just really lean into our best performing media types and making sure that we have presence there. Because if we don't clear or we're not able to get into other media types, it's not as critical to our plan.
Absolutely. The only other thing that I would add is from a timing standpoint. So we've definitely accelerated some of our Christmas messaging. Our Christmas shop has never been live this early. It's live. I think that customers don't have those queues that they normally have. The malls are not as filled as they are. Santa isn't going to be there taking pictures with kids. At least I hope he's not. And I think that we just want to make sure that we're helping customers to decorate their homes early. Everybody is, I don't know, in your neighborhood, everybody has their Halloween decorations out probably more than ever. So I think it's for us building and helping to build that spirit from a Christmas side, holiday side, and just knowing that behavior around the holiday from a gifting side, there will be no holiday parties going on, making sure that we're just keeping all this in mind of what the customer is thinking as we go in from a messaging side, from a creative side, and then lastly, making sure we're making those investments media-wise.
Yeah, this is actually a good segue into our discussion about kind of the next binge, right? What consumers are doing. And, so how have you guys been keeping an eye on that as far as the next binge watching, right? Tiger King, and kind of what's your strategies as it pertains to taking advantage of those things, and, who's keeping an eye on that ship, if you will?
From us, we're a little different because we're an in-house agency. So we don't have the benefit of having another agency with hundreds of people. So we've really been leveraging all of our relationships with vendors and with other brands as well to kind of keep that ongoing dialogue communication. I'll say, I feel like I have more meetings now than I did when I was in the office because we are just constantly keeping our finger on the pulse with them, constantly meeting, etc.
I think people have more ideas now because they're at home and they're consuming more media. So you're getting a lot more people coming at you with like, oh, I think we should be doing this. And why are we not investing here? But as far as like binging, I think for us also creatively, how are we integrating those so it makes sense within product lines or within behavior? So as popularity rises within certain new show launches, just making sure that we continue to stay top of mind, making referencing to attract the customers, get the click, get them excited about our brand.
Yeah, and I think very similarly, we do focus on that on our organic social side, just, you know, and keeping in tune with what's going on and being part of conversations that are relevant. But the place where we found success has been maybe more like binge news consumption, because we found some more success than usual actually over the past 6 months around breaches and around significant moments around data privacy and security. And we've actually had very interesting success doing some OTT and video as well as programmatic around specific breach events and breach moments to help make people aware of what's going on and to help sort of ride the wave of those conversations. And, you know, having that meaningful connection to these very important and confusing, complicated discussions of like, what does a breach mean? How does it affect me? You know, has been really good for us to just put ourselves in as a sort of advisor or as a guardian to kind of help you think about how this impacts you. And then by relation, how a service like Dashlane could help you stay on top of your digital accounts in general.
Yeah, we did the same as right in the beginning of COVID when everybody was home and they were like, oh goodness, how do I celebrate a birthday? I'm not going to be able to be with so-and-so. We really took to what was going on in our neighborhoods and we brought that forward. There are these parades that are going on. You can have a Zoom conference meeting. So it's just offering and kind of seeing what are you doing as human beings within the organization and then letting our customers know about that, serving as that resource by what's happening around us.
Yeah, so I mean, that's you know, that kind of leads again to the next question about just the open-mindedness that you kind of, I think, have to have this year, just in general. And I think that folks that were not necessarily open to new ideas probably struggled more than others. So for you guys, what are the most important things you kind of learned this year as it pertains to your media approaches and how important testing was and how important, like even not testing right now, but prepared, you know, testing coming into this, right? And being like, oh, thank goodness we tested that now that we're here. And then how being open-minded to new media really kind of helped you this year and any sweet spots, if you will, out of that, like maybe something that you went to leadership with and normally they would have been like, no way, but you supported it with data and it ended up being a big champion afterwards. So what are some things that have happened this year because just being positive and looking at it that way?
Yeah, I think buying into flexibility has been more important this year than ever. I love making plans. I love media plans. And this year we had probably the most planning we've ever done around media because of the scale of the national TV buy and Super Bowl and everything that was going into it. And for us to just 6 weeks in, basically revert everything that we had been planning for 4 or 5 months, you know, it was pretty extreme. But thankfully, you know, we had buy-in, we had the trust of the wider organization to be flexible, to divert investments. We worked with an amazing agency who really helped us shift, especially in TV, where it's notoriously difficult, linear TV, to change the nature of a buy. You know, I think a big piece of advice and something that really helped us was just have partners that will engage you when you need to be flexible and that will work with you. And also as a brand, you know, in these moments, it can be scary because you want to stop spending, you want to stop and evaluate, you want to, you know, hit pause on as much as you can. But I think you just have to have trust that, you know, you're buying the right way, that you're engaging the right way. There's always a way to engage. And I think just having that trust in yourself as a marketer to reallocate, to re-strategize, and to find new opportunities is also very, very important.
Yeah, I would say I had my number one thing too is flexibility. That is now the backbone of everything I decide. That if for some reason we had to walk away from media and this was left as firm media, would I feel comfortable with this being the only thing on my plan? I also think Michael had this good point. I kind of have written down that if you don't ask, you won't know. We've had a very antiquated way of doing business in some offline channels for a long time. And I think this year really pushed everyone in the industry to start re-asking different questions of how can we structure these deals differently to make sure my business is safe. And then finally with testing, I really like to look at testing as you win some and you lose some. Sometimes, obviously, we want to win them all, but sometimes those tests that don't perform may actually provide you the most valuable learnings going into the next year. So I am totally okay that if a test doesn't work, as long as we learn something that can help us do better the next time, I'm okay with that.
And the only thing I would add to, I agree with everything that you both had just said. Let the customers decide what works. I think that we kind of go in as marketers with certain biases of what we think will work and what should be our message. An example that I have is from Mother's Day. We had this really great spot that we created that had all these different moms, grandmas, big groups of families. And the thought was, well, we can't air this because it's not relevant. You're not going to be able to be with mom. You can't be with grandma. Our customers are going to feel weird that we're not showing social distancing. There's no masks. But we put it in market conservatively at spend, and we let the machine learn and see what the customers are responding to. And it actually reinforced the emotional connection. And people looked at that commercial and said, like, yeah, I do need to reach out to my grandma. I do need to reach out to mom. And seeing that emotional connection actually reinforced exactly what we needed from them, even if they couldn't be there with mom this year. So I think letting the customers decide.
Yeah, I actually have a personal story about that I actually got flowers from when I had her flowers for my mother for Mother's Day, which I normally don't do. And I actually left them on her front door and then rang the doorbell and ran back to my car, but left them there, right? And it made me feel really good. And she came out and her smile, and my dad came out, and that emotional, that just makes you happy, right? It makes you happy. So just a couple more questions, and then I think we're going to be at time to open it up for some questions. But there was the overarching kind of thought of some of the stuff from this panel is really these deferred upfronts and loss of sporting events and all these other things that were happening. Do you guys feel like you're holding back on any investments for 2021 in lieu of kind of what happened this year with some of that stuff that you were really committed to? I think you've all kind of answered that a little bit already, Janna specifically, as far as, yeah, we're kind of want to be flexible. Michael, want to be flexible. You guys are talking about that. So is there anything more you want to maybe add about that point?
We're flexible. I'd say the only thing I'll add is from a sports standpoint, we invest in sports radio endorsement. So for us, I think that we have slightly more flexibility in the sense that we're not locked into a specific spot. And the way that we work with the endorser is there's a relationship. So I think that people will tune in not just to hear what happened last night in sports, but they have a connection with the host. And so the read that we have is fresh, is new. It's not some canned spot that they have heard for a few weeks. So it's relating to what happened that week in the world, and it's personal. So I think that the way that we're using sports, it's still flexible in the sense that we're not going to be committing very large scale, but I guess in a smart way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, and Janna, you had mentioned too that you guys got into more opportunistic sports this year because of rates that made it more available for you, and that was probably good learning as well.
Exactly. Yeah, it was. We were able to test a lot of areas that we may have been risky from a cost perspective to test before, but because we were able to take advantage of some opportunistic rates, we were able to get those tests and learn a lot from them.
Yeah, and I think when we went into this year, we know the major lanes of mass media communication, right? So radio, linear TV, out of home, like this is where we were prepared to go. But when this happened, we also paused our radio and out of home campaigns because we were asking ourselves, in a normal environment, this is how you would enter the mass market through media strategy, because this is what people are paying attention to, because they wake up, they drive down the highway, they have the billboards, they listen to their podcast in the car, they're consuming all of this media in a very specific way. And when COVID happened and everything got thrown out of whack, we just didn't feel confident that it was the right moment for us to buy in all these traditional channels in the way that we were expecting. And so I think what we're still waiting on is to see how the situation continues to unfold in Q1 and start to see where those media consumption habits are starting to sort of become concrete. It's already happening, but around everything with sports and with movie releases, I mean, things are still very much up in the air. So we're still not yet confident to go back to that those lanes that I mentioned, which is why we're focusing so much more on a smaller, more niche audience that we're able to build out on a one-to-one basis, as well as engaging overall conversations that are relevant to us through content.
Gotcha. So this is our last question. And so then after this question, we're going to open it up to questions from the folks that are on the call. So if you want to just do a hand raise for Lisa, and then she'll kind of take it from there. But the last question for the panelists is just, how do you kind of keep your media scorecard balanced with kind of this changing and diverse media mix that's kind of out there right now?
Yeah, I think it's, from my end, it's really important that as we scale spend, to make sure don't take, again, like a one size fits all or one KPI fits all approach to your media. Really need to understand what the purpose of each media type is. There may be some media types that are better at driving new users or extending reach, and then some that are better at lower funnel performance metrics. So making sure, again, not everything will fit into one category, and understanding where each of those fits.
Yeah, I think for us, Janna, you just hit the nail on the head. Like, where we started this year was using these big brand channels to extend our voice and really establish our name as a brand name in the United States. And where we ended is actually changing the KPIs, right? So not thinking about reach and frequency, not thinking about brand lift in the way that we originally wanted to, but to focus on engagement, meaningful conversations, re-engaging current users who have lapsed, and just engaging in meaningful conversations in a much smaller way. But changing our KPIs was 100% necessary to us even thinking of being successful in the way we want to.
Yeah, and I know this is a media conversation, but you can only be as good with the media as you are with the creative that supports it. So we definitely did an overhaul of everything on our site, making sure that it's the right tone, the right messages getting communicated across. So everything from transactional emails, order confirmation pages, and making sure that that journey is consistent, and that it's relevant to the customer, and that it's acknowledging the different environment and the state that we're in. So making sure that it's not tone deaf.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, thank you guys so much. I think that Lisa, you have a protocol for question answering and all of that now, I think, right?
Yes, definitely. Well, we do have a question from Harrison Alpert. Harrison, do you want to ask your question? Is he? Whoop, he muted again. Well, let me, he wrote it on the chat. Oh, wait, we have him. Great. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, how are you guys doing? Thank you for taking the time out of your day to kind of chat with everyone. As you see in the chat, my name is Harrison Alpert. I'm the art director for Joybird Furniture, and we're mostly an online company. And I think one of the things that we have challenges at time with being a furniture company is a company you don't associate typically with something that's lifestyle, as far as like having a voice or opinion in these type of matters. And I know most recently with like social injustices, it's hard for consumers to really say, hey, what does this furniture company out of all people have to say about the matter, right? Like you don't go to us for the news per se, but it's something that our employees and we as a company truly do care about. So how do you come off to your audience with that genuine, a kind of genuine feel and touch in both your tone, in your creative and your marketing, without coming off as just saying, oh, they're just doing something just to do it because that's what everyone else is doing. Like on Blackout Tuesday, when we chose to stay silent, or on all these other injustice issues, we chose to say something, and people are just saying, you're just trying to take advantage of the situation and kind of leverage the climate for your own benefit. But as a company, and our employees are very passionate about these things, and we're a very diverse group of individuals, like how do you come across when you don't maybe associate yourself with that type of company, if that makes sense?
I can jump in really quickly. It definitely does make sense. And I think that what you're saying, you do have a powerful asset in the people behind your brand, and bringing them forward. It's native to your brand. For us, it's, you can't do anything for your brand that's not genuine and not true, and people will be able to call you out as inauthentic very quickly. So if it's something that you stand for, you have that already supporting you, behind you, whether it be certain diversity groups or inclusion groups that you have set up, the people that are part of your furniture company, bringing them forward as here we are, here's what we're doing, and just kind of having that conversation and dialogue. Maybe it's bringing somebody forward in a live chat on one of your social platforms just to have a conversation and to talk about it. But for us, we've always been able to stand behind the statements that we make, because it is part of who we are as a company. And as long as you're staying true to your DNA, you'll come out okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we actually launched a spot back in early summer called Main Street. And really the part of our business is we have local service professionals that actually fulfill the tasks for homeowners. So we were able to feature a lot of those kind of local service providers. And hey, you know, going through us, you're not going through this big home advisor mecca. You're actually, you know, Joe's electrician down the street on Main Street is the person that's fulfilling the request. So really find out from your brand, to Tania's point, like, what do you guys stand for, and what is your role within all this? Because you do have a role.
Yeah, and I think just to echo that, I mean, 100% agree. I think staying true to your brand's DNA is the best thing that you can do. And it's a lesson that we've learned very powerfully this year. You know, there's so much going on, and there's so much dialogue, and there's so much chatter everywhere on the internet, that trying to be meaningful and trying to stay close to what your brand stands for has been really an interesting learning experience for us, and has actually had a lot, it pays back in dividends. And, you know, just to take an example, there's so many breaches that are happening this year. We just had a breach with Robinhood, Barnes and Noble, like in the past week. And we try to just stay very close to these events and help people understand what they mean, and help sort of engage people, educate people, and be there for people in a way that helps to dispel miscommunication or misinformation, and just be there in a significant way, and provide some kind of value, and provide like this authentic voice that's relevant to the issues that we serve. And I think, you know, that's just been a very powerful lesson for us this year.
Yeah, and Harrison, I mean, these are all great answers as well, but also tomorrow we're going to have Alexis Kerr from Cadillac, and that's really what she's going to talk about. That's her specialty. She's going to be our keynote. So you want to definitely make sure to be a part of that. And we have a roundtable also tomorrow talking about just that as well. So it is something that all of you, as I've had chances to talk to you, it's been, you know, it's been an issue, and it's been something that people want to do. They want to be a part of, and they just want to make it authentic. So thank you. I appreciate that question, Harrison. And I actually have a question. It's kind of for all of you, but Tania, I know I had spoken with you because of everyone always talking about the flexibility and being able to change, and you're talking specifically about listening to your, you know, the consumers and what they're saying, and then you need to adjust. How are you doing that efficiently? Because I know you guys have started reworking how you do your video.
We have from a video side. Yeah, I actually had my first full virtual production take place 2 weeks ago, and it was amazing to be able to have a small and safe crew literally across the country in LA, and I was able to see and watch everything. We really have been tapping into a few different partners, and I think it's important for brands to align with a couple different partners and seeing who can move quickly, who can take an idea from start to finish. We were able to execute and deliver, I think, 17 different assets from 2 different partners across 2 to 3 weeks. And we thought it was a pretty big deal, and it was amazing how everybody really just, the talent that you have access to now, I think things are a little bit slower. on the West Coast from people who are going in and building new things. So people are more flexible with their time, their rates are more flexible. And so for us, it was really just finding new partners and new sources out there, taking user-generated content and being able to package that differently and pushing that. I think we talked about native to platform. If you're in Facebook, if you're in even YouTube to some extent, you might be able to take some customer stories or some user-generated ad sets that they've submitted and repackage that as well.
I don't know if Michael, you were shaking your head a lot. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I mean, I just think that with all the uncertainty and craziness this year, creative is still the main driver of efficiency. And, you know, being very hyper aware of what messaging will work and what channels, I think has been something we've been trying to focus on, and just doing a lot of testing. I think, you know, getting as many assets as you can, iterating in as many ways as you can, trying different messages, especially for us around content. It's been a really big adventure this year to just start to see what works, and we're at the very beginning of that process. Right now, we're really starting to scale that up on B2B, and that's a whole nother ballgame with content, webinars, white papers, lots and lots of things in the works. But yeah, staying true to good creative will, it's easy to forget, I think, just because there's so much craziness going on and we're turning on and turning off so many channels, but you need amazing creative to be able to break through.
Okay, well, we are actually at our time, unfortunately, but so Shani, I want you to be able to say, you know, your thanks and everything, but you guys, thank you so much. That was so great. And Shani, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye guys.
Thank
Everyone,
you.
Bye.
see you later.
Thank you.
So much for your participation.